Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a pretty fun Tuesday night slate here. Some pretty big games tonight. In this one, we're taking a look at the Celtics taking on the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn, which means no Kyrie Irving as it's a home game tonight. Obviously, still no KD. We know James Harden. Plenty of drama and fun to talk about in this one. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page as we got a couple other videos up for you on this pretty big slate, including that player props video that we'll look to stay hot on. At least stayed over 500 last night. Won some money on our opening night of the week, and those player props look to stay hot with you there. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, 10 games to choose from on a Tuesday, and there are some intriguing options. Obviously, we want to look at this game because of the drama Josh mentions, but the trends are so obvious that it's moving away from value for the Celtics. Opened at around -4.5, now -7.5, and the total dropping a little bit to 215 at this point. Celtics have been the best defense in the league recently. We will get into that more, though, but looking at these 9 other games, also an intriguing game here. Suns +1 at Philly. Suns are on a back-to-back, so we didn't want to break it down yet, considering they might rest somebody here at the end of the 4-game road trip. Total sitting at 220 there for that premier matchup. The Pacers, who unloaded Karis LeVert, we now wonder whether anyone will be able to score, are +10 in Atlanta. The Clippers are +8 at the Grizzlies. Clippers just picked up Covington and Norman Powell last night ahead of the deadline, but they won't be ready tonight to play. The Rockets are +10 at the Pelicans. Pistons +11 at Mavericks. The Knicks +8 at Denver, so they come off a loss in Utah. The Bucks are -4 at the Lakers. We will break that one down for you in a separate episode. Wolves -5 at the Kings with a total up at 234 there. And then finally the Magic in a pick'em basically at Portland. Oh boy, how far Portland has fallen to get that line assigned. But we're looking at the Nets, who have really fallen as well, of course, lost 8 straight with KD out. They've now lost 12 of their last 14 with Durant and only covered in 1 more in that span. Their defensive rating has jumped 10 points when he's off the floor this year. And now they're at home where without Kyrie Irving, their offensive rating is 6 points lower as well. They've really been bad at home regardless, even when they had KD scoring 5 points per game fewer. They're 25th in offensive efficiency on the year. They are below 500 straight up and way, way worse against the spread, 5-19 at home, including 1-7 against the spread. Their last 8 home games. In their last 8, as I mentioned, 0-8. Dead last in defensive rating, giving up 120 points per game, 27th in opponent shooting, not doing well on the boards either. And the Celtics, like I said, the numbers are very glaring because the Celtics are the best team according to net rating and defensive rating by far, allowing 94 points per 100 possessions in their last 8, won 7 of 8. There have been some cupcakes in there, most recently beating Orlando and Detroit, but they smashed the Heat. They got a nice win against the Hornets. And obviously, this is a big matchup for them, considering the Nets have beaten up on them, mostly because of Durant and Kyrie being in the lineup. Before that, it was even Karis LeVert. You can go all the way back. They haven't won in Brooklyn since 2018. But in the last 3, Kyrie clearly on some revenge, a 135 offensive rating to carry them. Durant also some very efficient numbers to result in a blowout last Christmas. So, hopefully the Celtics have fixed their issues in terms of focus. That's the only reason to worry about them covering here. They've blown more double-digit leads than anybody this season. But recently they have been closing. It seems Ime Udoka, the first-year coach, has kind of reached this team, has figured out how to use his incredible assets on defense to just shut down the opposition. And certainly if the Nets don't have James Harden, you wonder if they're going to be able to score 104 points against the Celtics, who are giving up 93 points per game in their last 8. They've gone under in 7 of their last 8. You feel really good about the under, certainly teasing it with another game up to back to 219 or 218. It'll probably keep dropping. So, and I would consider teasing it with the Celtics because I mean, I'm just reluctant to take a rivalry game, no matter who's suiting up, and say one team's going to cruise by double digits here, especially if it's the Celtics, who have just shown an ability to play down to their opponent time and time again. And while the Nets don't have their stars, they do have a lot of athletes. Cam Thomas, Kessler Edwards, James Johnson, DeAndre Bembry. These guys are going to make it tough for the Celtics to just cruise, for Tatum and Brown to just start cooking. The question for me is whether the Nets can score on the other side, and I don't think they're going to be able to. So I think that's why you feel good about a close Celtics win and an under.
Yeah, and the Celtics, the team that have done what they can to lose in certain situations for sure by helping out, but even building leads and then losing them. So even if they build a double-digit first-half lead, you still feel like, well, all it takes is that stagnance that always comes for 1 or 2 or 3 spurts a game for the Celtics, where if Jalen and Jason aren't hitting their shots after creating for themselves, then there's really not much ball movement because everyone's been standing around watching them do their thing. The other night when Schroeder went off and had his 20-point game, that was super helpful for the C's, as it sort of kept Tatum and Brown from feeling as though this is the offense, it's just my turn, your turn, and they got some other guys involved. I think I'm mostly starting on the other side of the floor though, where it's Celtics defense against the Nets offense, and specifically the Nets lack of offense against this defense. I mean, they have the 5th worst offensive rating at home, yet the number 1 offensive rating on the road. So, I mean, that's been the case with them this season. We've seen them struggle more at home. Lots of jokes out there for how, there's no Nets fans, so why would they be good at home? But regardless, it's also obviously hugely impacted by the fact that at least one of their top 3 players cannot play at home. So that there's a huge reason that they struggle so glaringly on offense versus when they're on the road, right? And so tonight, I'd like the Celtics to win this game. We mentioned like a lack of stars, obviously, and a lack of closers for the Spurs. The Nets. I said the Spurs because I was thinking Patty Mills, and I mean, he's going to be on this Nets team tonight. He'll be fine. I think, when you see these player props come out, obviously we're still waiting on the ones from Brooklyn while we record because James Harden may not play tonight. And if he doesn't, then, it's almost like I kind of feel better about the Nets if he doesn't, just because it's kind of like, what do they have to lose? Stars out, bets up kind of thing. Whereas if Harden's playing tonight, I like the Nets even less, just because I think he's just going to be, we've already seen him not really care about what's going on with that 4-point stinker against the Kings that he put up and then didn't play against the Jazz. And so, yeah, it doesn't look like he really cares right now. So him being on the floor seems like it would just be one of those almost Houston situations where it's like he's turning the ball over to the other team on purpose because he's just sort of throwing a fit. And yeah, going back to the numbers, I don't feel good about this Nets team in any way, shape, or form right now, mostly because of the team chemistry issues and the drama that we spoke about at the top. You mentioned Kyrie being crucial to what they do, specifically against the Celtics. And that's the thing that doesn't scare me about the fact that you mentioned the Celtics have not won in Brooklyn for a long time. That's because they've just been getting beat up by Kyrie and some form of Kyrie and KD. And Kyrie specifically, since he's come back to the Nets from that injury, a few seasons ago, in the last 2 seasons, he's got 3 games against the C's where he's averaging 31 points, 8 boards, and 7 assists, like just putting up LeBron numbers, right? So, he's not there tonight. That's going to impact everything that happens to them, mostly on offense. I don't love taking the C's, to just score a ton of points necessarily as well, which is why I like the under in general for the entirety of this game, but also feel pretty good about the under for that Nets team as it currently sits. I think about 106.5 for them. They're averaging about 107 at home, even with, when KD was in the lineup. So, you could take the Celtics. Yeah, look, I don't love taking them just because despite the fact that they have the best net rating in the league by far over the last 10 games or so, they still seem to lose certain games or at least come close, keep things too close against teams that they should be blowing out when you look at how they're winning their games and their margin of victory. So, yeah, I think a teaser is fine. I also think taking their money line and parlaying that with the under as it stands at about 216, if you can get it, get you up to about plus 105 on your money or so. So at least you get even money for them to just pull out a victory and feel good about the fact that I don't think there's going to be very many points scored tonight.
Yeah, unless, Harden does play and it just turns into a total malaise fest from the Nets, letting the Celtics get up to 120 because they really just don't care. But the under, the numbers definitely support an under. Celtics are 10-2 to the under as a road favorite this season, and they've gone under in 4 of their last 5 trips to Brooklyn. They're also much better as road favorites against the spread than they are at home.
Yeah.
Kind of speaks to the weird mindset that this team has, where they struggle with expectations. And that's really the concern for me, is that they're expected to roll a team that's like comprised mostly of G League players. But, that does create some pressure in some ways. But I think we have enough of a sample size to say this is a legit turnaround for the Celtics. They've really improved in every statistical category that they were really struggling in. Went from bottom 10 rebounding to top 3 rebounding, went from bottom 10 in assist rate to now top 10 in assist rate. And obviously their defense so much better. They're allowing the second fewest triples per game during this hot stretch. And so if you're depending on Patty Mills to get 30 points for the Nets here, or Harden, who's not really getting to the rim much, won't have an easy time getting to the rim with Robert Williams out there. So he's going to be just hoisting threes probably, as you mentioned, that's kind of what he does when he's moping. He just takes these step back side step threes. And if they're not falling, the chemistry and the energy from the Nets should fall along with it. And I think there is a chance that the Celtics just roll away and win, because it is feast or famine with this team. It's either everything is going well and, oh my God, they just beat the Heat by 40 points. Or, it's just like, oh my God, they lost to the Wolves' third string team. But yes, I think we can have enough faith in the Celtics to tease them with the win here and hope that they play good enough defense to keep it under.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're going to play good enough defense. I mean, even just looking back at their last 9 of their last 11 going under, and they've gone under not because the Celtics are not scoring. Over those last 11 games that we're talking about here, they're still averaging about 110 or so in that time frame, and giving up about 102 or so in that time frame. Where it's like, they're winning some games against some teams that are struggling right now, especially in the Eastern Conference. They've looked really good against them in this recent streak against all Eastern Conference teams, mixing in one game against the Pellies, but mostly other than that, a lot of wins against the Eastern Conference and their division. So combine that with the fact that Brooklyn looks the complete opposite. I think we consider Brooklyn a team more along the lines of the Magic, or a team like that right now that doesn't have very many stars to their name, when you've got all these guys sitting out for Brooklyn and a James Harden that looks like he'd rather be in a lot of other places other than playing basketball. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Got those other couple videos up for you today. Until we see you next. Happy betting.